I have returned, human. I have beseeched the forest for sustenance, and have returned with a modest offering of berries and fruits. These, coupled with the dried meats I carry with me in my pouch, should serve as ample sustenance to get us back to my village, and your judgment. If you promise to behave, I may be inclined to unbind your hands, as to avoid the humiliating act of having to feed you Hang on a second. How are you walking about? You were bound to that tree by the fire. By vines, the forest's unbreakable vines. How did you break free of your restraints? You didn't. The forest released you. Of course it did. Now, Serranus, you must remember the words of the Grand Flora Sage. The will of the forest works in mysterious ways, and we must respect that. Well, listen here, human. Just because the forest deems you as not a threat, does not make you any less my prisoner. Any attempts to overpower me or flee will be met with an arrow through your skull. Understood? Good. Now, as it is apparently against the will of the forest to have you restrained to a tree all evening, you will place yourself at my side by the fire, so that I may keep a proper eye on you. Do not think that because the forest seems to trust you, that I do. I respect the will of the forest. That does not mean I agree with it. Now sit. Good human, so you can follow orders. Now hurry up. Take your berries and some dried meats from my satchel. The sooner you eat, the sooner we can return to the road back to my village. Do we elves normally eat meals like this? Well, it varies greatly, I suppose. Truth be told, our satchels of dried meats and bread are only meant to be used in emergencies. Normally, an elf may be able to scrounge a full meal, even a plentiful bounty from the forest, and will rarely, if ever, have to rely on their own ration pack. So why are we eating from the ration pack? Well, not that it's any of your business, of course, but I suppose the forest and I have been having somewhat of a disagreement as of late. It's safe to say that I am, I'm struggling to communicate effectively with it. As I'm sure you've seen since we first encountered each other a few hours ago, the forest's will and my own do not exactly harmonise as well as they should. We are out of sync, disconnected. Do not mock me with such pitying glances. I am not some wounded animal, missing a limb that is never to return. No, this is but a temporary issue, one which will be resolved in time. Yes. I just need to bring you to my village. Bring you before the Council of the Great Forest's will. That'll clear my name. That'll fix everything. What is the Council of the Great Forest's will? Human, You jest, surely. I know that you mentioned you were not from around here, but anyone on this planet has heard of the Council of the Great Forest's will. There are many stories of wonder, mystery and intrigue spanning back across centuries, spanning across continents. You truly haven't heard of them? Curious. Well, I suppose it falls within my old elm duties to explain to you just who these regal council members are who you will be meeting in the coming days. The Council of the Great Forest's will is a collection of 9 of the village's most wise, spiritually connected, and oldest elves. Each dedicating their lives to becoming a mouthpiece for the forest's will, to channeling it through themselves, only ever managing to channel and harness one small part of the great forest's expanding will. One emotion, for example. There is a council member who oversees the wants of the great forest. There is a council member that oversees the wrath of the great forest. There is a council member for the sorrow, for the love, for the pain. Each of them speaks for the forest, altogether creating one complete picture, one whole mind map of the forest's will. A will which we try very hard to satisfy. We have lived symbiotically with the great forest for centuries, and this has proved to be a most prosperous relationship for all parties. For us who live in the forest, who eat its fruits, drink its waters, harvest its trees and botanicals, and for the great oak itself, the heart of the great forest's will, to whom we provide protection and services in line with its will. Indeed, we conduct a variety of duties for our host, all separated into factions. For example, we have the Monastery of Gardeners, who is in charge of planting new growth and cultivating fields to bring them into blossom. We have the Order of the Grass Scythe, who are in charge of felling trees that have rotted at the roots and removing any impurities from the forest which may harm its growth. We have the Old Elm Guard, where I serve. We protect the forest and its borders from any intruders, whether that be domestic or foreign. And then, of course, they are all governed by the Council of the Great Forest's will, who in turn are governed by its leader. As I mentioned, a ship is only as good as its captain, and the council is no different. For whilst they are wise, and whilst they do directly draw from the primal emotions that comprise the great forest's will, the council members lack the ability to see the big picture. Indeed, one could hardly blame them, as they train their entire lives only to be able to withstand a small fragment of the infinite expanse of the great forest's will. When you're so focused on one small element, it becomes all-encompassing. A want becomes a need. Anger becomes fury. Sorrow becomes heartbreak. It stands to reason, then, that the council would need one such individual to examine each individual component and then piece them all together into a grand tapestry to see the overarching will of the forest. And for that, you need wisdom. In this role we find the Grand Florist Sage, branch of the great oak, voice of the woods. They are our most divine, most wise, and most spiritually in-tuned elf with the great will of the forest. They are indeed the true voice of the forest, examining its different emotional waves and wants, and from it weaving together a grand tapestry of the forest's will. They are so in tuned and so wise to the will of the forest as to be seen as almost an extension of the great oak itself, hence the name Branch of the Great Oak, Voice of the Woods. It is them who will decide what we do, where we guard, where we forage, what we reap. And as such, this means that their word is, in every sense, law. For if one wishes to remain as a part of our village and a part of the forest itself, they must adhere directly to the words of the Grand Flora Sage. I'm sorry, but please don't interrupt me. Save all questions until the end. Rude human. Anyway, what was I saying again? No, it's gone. I have lost my carriage of thought. Very well, human. What is your question? What does all of this have to do with me? Well, not that it's any of your business, but I suppose if you asked the council they would tell you, so I would prefer that you heard a true account of events from yours truly. Okay. Well, as you know, I served in the Old Elm Guard. I protected the forest's boundaries against threats, both external and domestic. That usually involved repelling invasive species of animals, dragons or drakes, from setting up nests, the odd set of bandits from setting up camp, using our thick foliage as a way to escape and hide. However, we have been experiencing a growing threat from the humans. More especially, the humans residing in the industrial Dalaran Empire, with their industries and machinery and cities, I believe they call them. Their rapid expansion across these lands have left them with a burning need for lumber and timber. It was fine at first. We would make deals to sign off small areas of the forest that we would cultivate and then reap for the humans. However, humanity has recently been suffering from its most primal ailment: greed. Greed has driven the humans to ask for more, to ask for lumber faster than the forest can cultivate, faster than our gardeners can work, faster than the grass scythe can safely reap. They've begun sending mercenary companies to plot out the full expanse of the great forest, seeing if some sections or segments could be quietly harvested off without our knowing. Little do they know that the forest knows all, and alerted us to be vigilant. We have stood on our borders for decades. I have overseen, personally, the guarding of the full southeastern quadrant of the forest for nearly 7 years. I have fulfilled my duty to the letter with accuracy, poise, and ruthless dedication. I have stopped countless attacks and affronts to our forest. I have defended the land with an equal poise. I have stood firm and kept my vigil, whilst others around me, other elves, other guards, fled the forest to the cities, seeking an easier life. And yet, my experience was overlooked, the sweat that poured from my brow was ignored, and the blood that I shed was disregarded. When the Grand Flora Sage himself decreed that all of the Old Elm Guard should retreat from the borders and regroup in the inner circle of the Great Forest, essentially offering up miles, acres of land to be harvested by the humans. I admit that when I was first told of this instruction, I laughed it off as a bad joke, knowing that the humans would not be satisfied with the vast acres of lumber they would gain and would still come for more. But when I found out that it was in fact a true order, I made the mistake of objecting. I voiced my concern, which was allowed, though definitely was not appreciated. However, my error came when the Florist Sage ended the discussion. I, of course, opened it again by refusing to abandon my post. I was captain of the Old Elm Guard, you see. I had considerable sway, and many of my men would have followed me to the end, even if they did not agree with me, purely because of my station. The Grand Florist Sage knew this, you see, and so did the Council, who stripped me of my title and exiled me from the village. I am now, and have been for a while, excommunicated from my people. Allowed to remain within the forest, but not allowed home. Not allowed to the inner village, or indeed to the Great Oak. And so, I have remained here, maintaining a vigilant watch over the great forest's borders, repelling wave after wave of mercenaries, marauders, humans who enter the forest with ill intent in their hearts. But over time, I grew rageful, bitter. I stopped firing warning shots, stopped shooting to wound, started to kill, started to like to kill. And it was through that my disillusionment with the forest's will began. I found it harder and harder to sustain myself on the forest's bounties. I found shelter from the harsh conditions of the evening harder and harder to come by. I found myself having to raid the packs of the mercenaries I'd slain for food and water. And so, after a while, I came up with a plan. I would capture the next human that entered this forest, alive, and I would march them back to the village, parade them to the council, to the Grand Florist Sage, and triumphantly shout, "Look here! A human enters the forest with avarice and evil in its heart. Your decision to retract from the forest walls and offer them up to the humans has changed nothing. Their ravenous hunger for our resources and their disregard for our livelihoods remains the same. I was right." I had hoped that would be enough for them to understand that my concerns were well founded, that my objection was not out of disrespect, but out of concern and love for the forest. And I had hoped that they would take me back. But, of course, as fate would have it, the first human that I meet, that I come across, that I capture, happens to be you. A human who poses no real threat, with nothing particularly impressive or special about them, whom does not even know of the great forest whose floors they tread, let alone harbour any ill intent for it. No, you are not the kind of human that I was expecting. Indeed, I do not believe I have any right to imprison you. It's apparent that you are not from here. And I fear that... Well, I fear that I might be becoming too bitter. Judging all humans by the ones I've encountered. Letting one bad apple spoil the bunch. I apologize, human. You are free to go. I will guide you back to the forest boundaries in the morning. From there, you may do as you wish. I will not follow. Human. Starvation or exhaustion must be getting to you. I have just offered you freedom. Why would you possibly still wish to continue your journey to the council? You have nothing to offer them. You wish to plead my case. As amusing as that would be to see, I do not think that is for the best. Indeed, I doubt I would even be allowed into the council chambers. Probably not even into the village itself. No. Indeed, the only way I shall be getting in there is... well, with a bandit in my custody. A human of ill repute. Until then, I am resigned to my fate as the lone Elm Guard, maintaining sole vigilance over the forest's outer borders. Yes, it does sound rather lonely, doesn't it? This is life, I suppose. We reap what we sow. Now, human, you must be talking nonsense. Surely, why would you wish to stay? I have been nothing but condescending to you. I have given you no reason to stay. You wish to keep me company until I capture my human of ill repute. Well, you are full of surprises. And I will not lie, it will be nice to have someone around who is on speaking terms with the forest. Very well, human. You may remain at my side. Perhaps I may even teach you a thing or two from my time as an old Elm Guard. Some basic skills in navigation, tracking, trapping, hunting. Perhaps even some basic forestry and botany. A lot of the materials found in this forest are quite powerful for potions. And in return, you can tell me of this far-off land you have come from. I suppose some education on human culture would do me good to offset the biases that I have made towards your kind. So are we in agreement? Good. Now, finish your food. We have a long day tomorrow.